The conference room fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. Dozens of alien species sat around the circular table, their various forms creating strange shadows on the metallic walls. Hyun sat at the far end, his dark eyes scanning the room with quiet intensity. He was the only human present, and he could feel the weight of their stares. "The humans want to join the Galactic Council," announced the Vrelnian ambassador, his tentacles writhing with what might have been amusement. "This is unprecedented." Hyun remained still. He had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Ever since humanity had made first contact with the galactic community, Earth was a young planet by their standards, barely stepping into the stars while these civilizations had been traveling space for millennia. "We understand our position," Hyun said calmly. "We are newcomers, but we believe we have something valuable to offer." A ripple of what sounded like laughter moved through the room. The Cathari representative, a being made of crystalline structures that reflected light and rainbow patterns, spoke next. "Young species always believe they are special. What could you possibly offer that we have not seen before?" Hyun had expected this question. He pulled up data on his tablet and projected it into the center of the room. "Our planet has survived 6 major extinction events. Our species evolved in one of the most hostile environments in the known galaxy. We have fought through ice ages, plagues, and global wars. We are survivors." "Survival is not a skill," the Vrelnian said dismissively. "It is luck, is it?" Hyun asked. He changed the display to show human history. "We went from living in caves to walking on our moon in less than 12,000 years. Most species take 50,000. We developed faster than light travel within 200 years of splitting the atom. Your species took 800. The room grew quieter. Several aliens leaned forward, their attention now fully on the human. "We adapt," Hyun continued. "When our planet was covered in ice, we learned to make fire. When diseases threatened to wipe us out, we created medicine. When we ran out of resources on our homeworld, we looked to the stars. We never stopped pushing forward." The Cathari made a sound like wind through glass. "Aggression is not the same as adaptation. We have seen aggressive species before. They burn bright and die quickly." Hyun nodded. "You're right. We have been aggressive. We have fought terrible wars among ourselves. But we learned from them, we united. That is another thing humans do well. We can be fierce enemies, but we can also become loyal friends." Back on Earth, Minji watched the broadcast from the command center in Seoul. She was the head of Earth's defense initiative, a position that had seemed almost unnecessary when they first made contact with peaceful alien civilizations. Now, as tensions grew in certain sectors of the galaxy, her role had become crucial. "Do you think they'll accept us?" asked Taiho, her second in command. He was younger than Minji, but sharp and reliable. "Hyun is convincing," Minji said. "But words only go so far. They want to see what we can do." As if on cue, an alarm sounded throughout the command center. Minji's hand went to her earpiece. "Report. We're picking up a distress signal," said Hana from the communications station. "It's coming from the outer rim. A colony ship under attack." Minji's mind raced. This was either perfect timing or a test. "Whose colony?" "Vrelnian," Hana replied. "The same species that was questioning humanity's worth at the council." Minji made her decision in seconds. "Scramble our fastest ships. Get me a direct line to Hyun." In the council chamber, Hyun's earpiece buzzed. He listened for a moment, his expression never changing, then addressed the room. "I've just received word that a Vrelnian colony ship is under attack near the outer rim. Pirates, from what we can tell." The Vrelnian ambassador's tentacles went rigid. "That is impossible. We have military vessels patrolling that sector." "Your military vessels are 2 hours away," Hyun said, checking the data being fed to him. "The colony ship has maybe 20 minutes before their shields fail. Our ships are 45 minutes out." "You would risk your primitive vessels to save Vrelnians?" The ambassador's tone had changed, less mocking now. "We would risk our ships to save anyone who needs help," Hyun answered. "That's what we do." The human fleet consisted of 3 ships, small by galactic standards but fast. Borum commanded the lead vessel, the Indomitable. She had been a fighter pilot before humanity reached the stars, and she had adapted to space combat with frightening efficiency. "All ships, this is Borum, we're going in hot. The colony ship has civilians on board, including children. We protect them at all costs." Her crew responded with quick confirmations. They had trained for this. Every human military member had been drilling constantly since first contact, knowing that eventually they would need to prove themselves. The pirates were Krellin, a species known for their brutality and disregard for galactic law. Their ships were larger than the human vessels, better armed, and they had experience in combat. They should have been an overwhelming threat, but they had never fought humans before. Borum's ship shot forward at a speed that made her crew press back into their seats. She didn't slow down as they approached the pirates. Instead, she accelerated. "Captain, if we maintain this speed, we'll overshoot our weapon range," warned Diho from Tactical. "No, we won't," Borum said calmly. She had studied every battle record the Galactic Council had shared. She knew how these fights usually went. Ships would dance around each other at safe distances, trading shots with energy weapons until one side's shields failed. It was civilized. It was predictable. Humans didn't fight that way. The Indomitable screamed past the pirate ship so close that the enemy's shields crackled with proximity warnings. As they passed, Borum's crew launched every kinetic missile they had. The pirates' shields were designed to deflect energy weapons. They were not prepared for physical projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. 3 pirate ships exploded in rapid succession. The remaining vessels scattered, confused and frightened. "Second wave," Borum commanded. Her 2 escort ships had come in from different angles, using the chaos to position themselves. They opened fire with railguns, another human innovation that the galaxy had considered primitive. The pirates learned quickly that primitive could still be deadly. Within 8 minutes, the battle was over. The colony ship was safe. The pirates were either destroyed or fleeing, and the human fleet had suffered only minor damage. Back in the council chamber, every species watched the footage in stunned silence. Finally, the Kthari spoke, their crystalline form pulsing with light. "Your species fights like nothing we have ever seen. You are reckless." "We are effective," Hyun corrected gently. The Vrelnian ambassador approached Hyun. Tentacles extended in what the human had learned was a gesture of respect. "You saved our people. You risked your lives for strangers." "Not strangers," Hyun said. "Neighbors. We all share this galaxy. If humanity joins the council, we will defend it with everything we have." The vote was called. For the first time in 300 years, a new species was unanimously accepted into the Galactic Council. Humanity had taken its first real step into the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. Yuna stood on the observation deck of Station Prime, watching ships from 100 different worlds come and go. As Earth's first diplomatic liaison, she had the difficult job of helping humans understand alien cultures and helping aliens understand humans. It was harder than anyone had expected. "They keep asking about our wars," she said to Jinwoo, who had arrived from Earth that morning. He was a historian, brought in to help explain human history to curious alien species. "They can't understand why we fought each other so much." Jinwoo leaned against the window, his reflection ghostly in the transparent material. "Most of them had one government before they reached space. We had hundreds of nations, thousands of different beliefs. Of course we fought. But they see it as a weakness," Yuna said with frustration. "They think we're unstable. Are we?" Jinwoo asked quietly. Before Yuna could answer, an alert sounded throughout the station. She recognized it immediately, having memorized all the emergency codes during her first week. This was a code red, the highest level of danger. The station's commander, a Kthari named Velkris, appeared on every screen. "All personnel to emergency stations. We are under attack by unknown vessels. This is not a drill." Yuna and Jinwoo ran to the nearest emergency station where other diplomats and workers were already gathering. Through the window, they could see explosions lighting up the darkness of space. Whoever was attacking had come in force. Suho commanded the human defense fleet now, having been promoted after Borum's successful rescue of the Vrelnian colony. His ships were stationed near Earth, but they received the distress call from Station Prime within seconds. "How long to get there?" he asked his navigator. "At maximum speed 40 minutes, Nari replied. "But Captain, we're supposed to stay here and guard Earth. Those are our orders." Suho knew she was right. Earth was still vulnerable. They had only a handful of military vessels, and leaving the planet undefended went against every protocol they had established. But he also knew something else. "Orders can change," he said. "And right now our people are on that station. Every species in the galaxy is watching to see what humanity does. Do we hide and protect only ourselves, or do we stand with the Council? He opened a channel to Earth Command, where Minji was already reviewing the situation. Commander, requesting permission to move the fleet to Station Prime. Minji's face appeared on screen. She looked tired, the weight of her responsibility showing in the lines around her eyes. You know what I have to say, Suho. Earth comes first. Then say it, Suho challenged. Give me the order to stay here while our people die. The silence stretched for several seconds. Finally, Minji sighed. Go, but if Earth falls while you're gone, I'll haunt you personally. Suho allowed himself a small smile. Understood, Commander. Fleet is moving out. The attacking force was unlike anything the Galactic Council had encountered before. Their ships were dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and their weapons tore through shields as if they weren't there. Station Prime's defenses were strong, but they were designed for pirates and small raiders, not a full military assault. We need to evacuate, Belchris announced. All non-essential personnel to the escape pods. Yuna helped organize the evacuation, guiding frightened aliens toward safety. She noticed that the human contingent on the station, almost 70 people, were all staying behind to help others escape first. Diplomat Yuna called a Vrelnian scientist she had befriended. You must go. The station will not hold much longer. Not yet, Yuna said, scanning the crowd. There are still people who need help. Jinwoo appeared beside her, carrying a small child from one of the insectoid species. The education wing is clear. Where do you need me? They worked together, moving through corridors that shook with each impact. Yuna realized something as she watched the other humans working. They weren't stronger than the other species. They weren't smarter or more advanced, but they had something that seemed to surprise the aliens around them. They refused to give up. Suho's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel right into the middle of the battle. What they saw made his blood run cold. Station Prime was surrounded by dozens of dark ships and its shields were flickering. Analysis, he demanded. Unknown ship design, reported his tactical officer, Kyung. But their weapons are advanced. Very advanced. More than anything in the Council's arsenal. Then we'll have to be smarter, not stronger, Suho said. It was becoming a human motto. Launch all drones and set them to pattern Delta. The human fleet had adapted their tactics since joining the Council. They had studied every battle, every war that the galactic civilizations had fought, and they had noticed something interesting. Most species fought in predictable patterns, using strategies that had worked for thousands of years. Humans changed tactics constantly. The drones spread out, each one broadcasting false signatures to make it look like there were hundreds of human ships instead of just 5. The attacking force, whoever they were, hesitated. That moment of confusion was all Suho needed. All ships focus fire on their command vessel. Ignore everything else. Sir, that goes against standard Council doctrine, Kyung warned. We're supposed to engage evenly across the enemy formation. I know, Suho said. That's why they won't expect it. The human ships converged on the largest enemy vessel, pouring every weapon they had into its shields. The enemy tried to respond, but they had spread their forces to surround the station. By the time they realized what the humans were doing, it was too late. The command ship's shields collapsed and the human railguns tore into its hull. The vessel broke apart in a brilliant explosion. Without their leader, the attacking force faltered. Some ships retreated immediately. Others tried to continue the fight, but now Council reinforcements were arriving from other sectors. The battle turned quickly. Inside the station, Yuna felt the impact stop. She pulled herself up from where she had been thrown during the last explosion and checked on Jinwoo. He was helping a wounded alien, applying pressure to what might have been an injury. It was hard to tell with so many different anatomies. Is it over? Jinwoo asked. I think so, Yuna said. She activated her communicator. All stations report status. The responses came in slowly. There had been casualties, both human and alien. Parts of the station were destroyed, but they had survived. Velchris found Yuna in the medical bay hours later. The Kthari's crystalline form had cracks running through it, damage from the battle. Your people saved us, he said simply. The human fleet arrived when all seemed lost. We take care of our friends, Yuna replied. She was exhausted, covered in dust and blood that wasn't her own. That's what friends do. Most species would have protected their homeworld first, Velchris observed. Leaving your planet defenseless to save a space station is illogical. Maybe, Yuna admitted. But staying behind while others needed help didn't feel right. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't logical. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed travel. The council convened an emergency session to discuss the attack and what it meant. Yun attended again, along with Suho and several other human representatives. "We need to know who attacked us," demanded the Cathari representative. "And why?" "We're analyzing the wreckage now," reported a council military commander. "But preliminary evidence suggests these ships came from outside our sector." From the dark zone. The room went silent. Even Hyun, who had studied galactic politics extensively, felt a chill. The dark zone was a region of space that the council had marked as off-limits centuries ago. No one talked about what was out there, but every species seemed to fear it. "That's impossible," said the Vrelnian ambassador. "Nothing comes out of the dark zone. The barrier prevents it." "What barrier?" Suho asked. "What's in the dark zone?" The aliens looked at each other, clearly uncomfortable. Finally, the Cathari representative spoke. "There was a war, long before your species existed. A war that nearly destroyed the galaxy. The survivors built a barrier to contain what remained of the enemy. It has held for 2 million years. Until now," Hyun said quietly. The implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. If the barrier was failing, if something was coming from the dark zone, then the galaxy faced a threat unlike anything the current civilizations had ever known. "We need to investigate," Suho said. "Send a fleet to the barrier, figure out what's happening." "We cannot," the council commander said. "It is forbidden. The barrier must not be approached." Hyun stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Then you're saying we should just wait here until they attack again? Hope that whatever is in the dark zone decides to leave us alone?" "You do not understand," the Cathari representative said. "Your species is young. You do not know what waits in the darkness." "Then tell us," Hyun challenged. "Because right now it looks like you're more afraid of ancient history than current threats." The meeting ended without resolution, but Hyun knew what would happen next. The council would debate and discuss, following protocols that were older than human civilization. They would move slowly, carefully, bound by traditions and fears. Humanity didn't have those chains. That evening, Hyun met privately with Minji, Suho, and several other human leaders. The expedition fleet assembled in secret, far from the major trade routes where council observers might notice. Suho commanded from the flagship, a vessel they had named Defiant, in a moment of honesty about what they were doing. 8 ships total, each one crewed by volunteers who understood they might not return. Yoonji served as the chief science officer for the expedition. She was young for such an important role, barely 30 years old, but she had a gift for understanding alien technology. She stood in the laboratory section of the Defiant, studying what little information the council had shared about the barrier. "It's not a physical wall," she explained to Suho when he came to check on her progress. "It's more like a field that prevents faster than light travel. Ships can't jump through it, and trying to fly through it at normal speeds would take decades." "But something got through," Suho said. "The ships that attacked Station Prime came from the other side." "Exactly," Yoonji confirmed. "Which means either the barrier is failing, or someone found a way to break through. Either possibility is terrifying." Jihoon was the youngest captain in the expedition, commanding one of the smaller scout ships. He had barely graduated from the academy when first contact happened, but he had proven himself capable in the months since. Now he sat in his command chair, watching the stars drift past, and wondered if he would ever see Earth again. "Captain, we're approaching the barrier coordinates," reported his navigator, a woman named Sora. "Slow to impulse speed," Jihoon ordered, "and keep all sensors on maximum. I want to know if anything so much as blinks in our direction." The barrier appeared on their screens not as a wall, but as a region of space where the stars seemed to shimmer and distort. It was beautiful in a way, like looking at the world through water, but Yoonji's warnings made it feel ominous. "All ships maintain formation." Suho's voice came through the communication system. "Yoonji, what are you seeing?" From the Defiance laboratory, Yoonji watched her instruments with growing concern. "The barrier is definitely weakening. I'm detecting fluctuations in the field strength. It's like something is pushing against it from the other side." "Can you tell what?" Suho asked. "Not yet, but give me time." They didn't have much time. Sensors detected movement beyond the barrier, shapes that were difficult to make out through the distortion. Whatever was on the other side knew they were there. Minho served as the communications specialist on the Defiant. He had spent weeks learning the basic languages of dozens of alien species. preparing for the day when humanity might need to talk to new civilizations. Now he was trying to detect any signals coming from beyond the barrier. "I'm picking up something," he reported. "It's faint, but it's definitely a transmission." "Can you translate it?" Suho asked. Minho worked his controls, filtering out interference and amplifying the signal. What came through made everyone on the bridge go quiet. It was a distress call. The message was old, broadcast on a loop for what must have been thousands of years. Minho played it for the crew, his translation appearing as text on their screens. "To anyone who receives this message, stay away. The war is not over. They still hunt us. We thought we could contain them, but we were wrong. The barrier will not hold forever. When it falls, run. Do not try to fight. They cannot be defeated." The message repeated the same warning over and over again in a language that no living species spoke anymore. "Well, that's not ominous at all," Ji-hoon muttered on his ship. Suho made a decision. "We need to know what we're dealing with. Yoonji, can you send a probe through the barrier?" "Maybe," Yoonji said. "But if the barrier is what's preventing them from getting through, opening even a small hole might be dangerous." "Everything about this mission is dangerous," Suho replied. "Do it." Yoonji designed a probe that could slip through the weakest points in the barrier field. It took her 6 hours, working non-stop while the rest of the fleet waited in tense silence. Finally, she launched it. The probe vanished into the shimmer of the barrier. For a moment, they lost all signal. Then slowly, data began to come through. What they saw made Eunji's hands shake. Beyond the barrier was a graveyard. Thousands of ships drifted in the darkness. Ancient vessels from species no one had ever seen. Some were massive, the size of small moons. Others were sleek and deadly-looking. All of them were damaged, torn apart by weapons that left strange marks on the metal. "They fought a war here," Yoonji whispered. "A massive war. Focus the probe," Suho ordered. "I want to see what they were fighting." The probe moved deeper into the graveyard. At first, they saw only more wreckage. Then the probe's camera caught something moving. It was a ship, but not like any ship they had seen before. It was organic, alive in a way that made it look like it was breathing. Its surface rippled with colors that hurt to look at, and it moved through space with purpose, hunting. "Is that what attacked Station Prime?" Ji-hoon asked over the communication channel. "I don't think so," Yoonji said. "The ships that attacked us were mechanical. This is something else." As they watched, the organic ship approached one of the ancient wrecks. Appendages extended from its body, tearing into the dead vessel and pulling pieces inside itself. It was feeding. "Pull the probe back," Suho said quietly, slowly. "Don't attract attention." But it was too late. The organic ship stopped feeding. It turned, somehow sensing the probe despite the barrier between them. The probe's camera showed what looked like eyes opening across the ship's surface. Dozens of them, all focusing on the tiny human machine. "Get it out of there now," Suho commanded. Yoonji tried, but the organic ship was faster. It shot forward with incredible speed, covering the distance in seconds. Appendages reached for the probe, and then the signal cut out. "Did it destroy the probe?" Ji-hoon asked. "No," Yoonji said, her voice shaking. "It's pulling it through the barrier. It's using the probe to find the weak point we opened." Alarms sounded across all 8 human ships. The barrier was tearing. Something was coming through. "All ships, battle stations," Suho ordered. "Prepare for contact." The organic ship emerged from the barrier like a creature being born. It was smaller than they had thought, maybe the size of a human fighter craft, but it radiated menace, and behind it, they could see more shapes moving toward the tear. "We need to close that opening," Yoonji said urgently. "If more of them get through, they'll head straight for council space." "How do we close it?" Suho asked. "I don't know. The barrier is ancient technology. I don't even understand how it works, let alone how to repair it." The organic ship ignored the human fleet. It oriented itself as if sniffing the air, then suddenly accelerated away from them, heading in the direction of the nearest inhabited systems. Suho had seconds to make a choice. Let it go and focus on closing the barrier, or pursue it and risk more creatures coming through. He thought about the people on Station Prime, the civilians who had almost died, the thousands of worlds in council space, full of beings who had no idea what was coming. "Ji-hoon, Yoonji, your ships stay here and figure out how to close that barrier. Everyone else, we're hunting that thing." The Defiant and 5 other ships broke formation, accelerating after the organic vessel. It was fast, but human ships had always been designed for speed. They closed the distance quickly. All weapons fire at will, Suho commanded. Energy beams and railgun rounds converged on the organic ship. It twisted and dodged with impossible agility, avoiding most of the shots. The few that connected seemed to wound it, but the damage healed almost instantly, the ship's surface flowing like liquid to seal the holes. "It's regenerating," reported Kyung from Tactical. "Conventional weapons aren't going to work." "Then we use unconventional weapons," Suho said. He opened a channel to engineering. "Prepare the experimental plasma charges." "All of them." "Sir, those are untested. They might not even work." "Then today we test them." The plasma charges were a human innovation, designed based on theories about how to combat biological threats in space. They had never been used in real combat. Now seemed like a perfect time to start. The human ship spread out, surrounding the organic vessel. It seemed to realize it was being cornered and turned to fight, extending those terrible appendages. "Fire," Suho ordered. The plasma charges detonated around the organic ship, creating a field of superheated gas. The creature writhed, its surface bubbling and burning. It tried to regenerate, but the plasma kept burning, preventing the healing. Finally, it stopped moving. The organic ship drifted, dead or dying. "Did we get it?" Kyung asked. Before anyone could answer, the creature exploded. But it wasn't a normal explosion. It was more like the ship was dissolving, breaking down into millions of tiny particles that scattered in all directions. "Scanners, track those particles," Suho commanded. "I want to know where they're going." The answer made his blood run cold. The particles were heading in hundreds of different directions, toward hundreds of different worlds. They were spores. It wasn't trying to escape. Yoonji's voice came through the communication channel. She had been monitoring the battle while working on the barrier. It was a seed ship. Its job was to spread, and we just helped it. Back at the barrier, Ji-hoon watched as more shapes pressed against the weakening field. "Yoonji, please tell me you've figured something out." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every species packed the space, their voices creating a chaotic symphony of fear and anger. Hyun stood at the human delegation's position, watching as the council leadership tried to restore order. "The human expedition has brought catastrophe upon us all," declared the Cathari representative, their crystalline form glowing red with rage. They breached the barrier against all warnings. Now these spores threaten dozens of worlds. "We were trying to help," Hyun said, his voice cutting through the noise. "The barrier was already failing. We didn't cause that. But you accelerated it," the Vrelnian ambassador countered. "And in destroying the seed ship, you spread its payload across our territories." Hyun couldn't deny it. 3 worlds had already reported spore landings. The organic material was growing at an alarming rate, consuming everything it touched. Quarantine protocols had been enacted, but everyone knew those were temporary measures. "We made a mistake," Hyun admitted, "but we can fix it. Let us help." "You have helped enough," the Cathari representative said coldly. "The council votes to expel humanity. You will return to your world and stay there. Any human vessel that leaves Earth's solar system will be destroyed." The vote was called. Hyun watched as species after species voted in favor. Only the Vrelnians abstained, remembering how humans had saved their colony. But it wasn't enough. "We understand," Hyun said quietly. "We will abide by the council's decision." On Earth, Minji received the news in her office. She had expected it, but hoped for better. Now humanity faced a choice. They could retreat to their home planet, isolate themselves from galactic affairs and hope the spore threat never reached them, or they could do what humans always did. She called an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership. Scientists, military commanders, diplomats, and politicians gathered virtually from across the globe. Minji laid out the situation without sugarcoating it. "The council has expelled us. They're terrified, and they're looking for someone to blame. That someone is us." "Then we leave," said one of the political leaders. "We pull back all our people, close our borders, and focus on defending Earth." "And when the spores reach us?" asked Yoonji, who had returned from the barrier mission. "Because they will. One of those spore trajectories is heading our way. It'll reach our system in approximately 6 months. Can we destroy it?" Minji asked. "Maybe, but that's not the real problem. The problem is the other worlds that are already infected. The Council doesn't know how to fight this threat. They've never encountered anything like it." "But we might," said a voice from the back of the virtual gathering. It was an old scientist named Dongyun, who had been studying biology since before first contact. "I've been looking at the data we collected from that organic ship. It's unlike anything in known biology, but it follows certain principles. It adapts, it evolves, it consumes. We've dealt with similar threats on Earth, such as," Minji asked. "Cancer," Dongyun said simply. "These spores are like a galactic cancer. They grow uncontrollably, consuming resources, spreading to new locations. We've been fighting cancer for centuries. We know how to approach this." A plan began to form. It was risky, possibly illegal according to council law, and would require humanity to act against direct orders, but it might save billions of lives. "If we do this," Hyun said slowly, "there's no going back. The council will see it as an act of defiance. They might declare war on us." "Then we better make sure it works," Minji replied. Boram found herself in command again, this time leading a fleet of 15 human ships. They were heading to Talvex Prime, one of the worlds where spores had landed. The planet's population had been evacuated to orbital stations, and the world below was being consumed by the organic growth. "It's beautiful in a horrible way," observed her tactical officer Sangwoo as they entered orbit. The planet's surface was covered in structures that looked like forests, but they pulsed with unnatural colors and grew visibly even from space. "How long until it covers the entire planet?" Boram asked Yunji, who was aboard as chief science advisor. "At current growth rate, maybe 2 weeks. After that, the mass will be sufficient to start producing seed ships. The cycle will begin again. Not if we stop it," Boram said. She opened a channel to her fleet. "All ships prepare the treatment. Remember, we only get one shot at this." The treatment was Dongyun's innovation. If the spores were like cancer, then they could be fought with similar methods. Radiation therapy, but on a planetary scale. The human ships carried experimental weapons that would bathe the planet in specific wavelengths of energy, targeting the organic material's ability to reproduce. "The council isn't going to like this," Sangwoo warned. "We're violating their quarantine and using unauthorized weapons on one of their worlds." "I know," Boram said. Fire. The human ships opened up with their new weapons. Beams of energy, invisible to the naked eye but devastating to organic matter, swept across Talvex Prime's surface. The growth began to wither, its colors fading from vibrant to dull gray. "It's working," Yunji reported, watching her instruments with amazement. "The spore mass is dying." But they weren't alone. Council security forces had detected their presence and were moving to intercept. 3 warships, each one larger and more powerful than any vessel in Boram's fleet. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. "They're ordering us to cease fire and surrender." Boram looked at the planet below. The treatment needed another 10 minutes to be complete. If they stopped now, the remaining spores would regenerate. The planet would be lost. "Continue the treatment," she ordered, "and prepare for battle." The council ships opened fire with warning shots, energy beams that passed deliberately wide. They didn't want to destroy the humans, just force them to comply. Boram's ships maintained their positions, continuing to bombard the planet with curative radiation. The council vessels moved closer, their next shots wouldn't miss. Then something unexpected happened. A Vrelnian ship appeared, positioning itself between the human fleet and the council security forces. "This is Captain Veltron of the Vrelnian vessel Mercy," came a transmission. "The humans are attempting to save Talvex Prime. I suggest we let them try." "They are violating council orders," the security force commander responded. "Stand aside." "No," Veltron said simply. "The humans saved my colony. I will not abandon them now." More ships began to arrive. Not many, but enough. A few Vrelnian vessels. 2 ships from smaller species who had seen humans as friends rather than threats. They formed a protective ring around Boram's fleet. "Treatment complete," Yunji announced. "The spores are dead. All of them." Boram let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "All ships, stand down. We've done what we came to do." The council security forces didn't attack. They couldn't. Not without firing on Vrelnian ships and risking a diplomatic incident far worse than humanity's defiance. They held position, waiting for orders from their superiors. Back on Earth, news of the successful treatment spread quickly. 2 other human teams were already replicating the process on the other infected worlds. Within days, all 3 planets were cleared of the spore infestation. The Galactic Council convened again, but this time the mood was different. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. respect, maybe even gratitude. The humans defied our orders, the Cathari representative said. This cannot be ignored. They also saved 3 worlds, Veltron said, now attending as a representative of a growing faction within the council. Worlds that we had given up for dead. Perhaps our orders were wrong. The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted humanity punished for their defiance. Others argued that results mattered more than protocols. Finally, a compromise was reached. Humanity will not be expelled, the council leader announced. But you will be on probation. You will share your spore treatment technology with the council, and you will participate in the defense force being assembled to monitor the barrier. We agree to all terms, Hyun said. Then he added, with one condition of our own. The chamber went quiet. A probationary member making demands was unheard of. We want full access to the records of the ancient war, Hyun continued. Everything you know about what's beyond that barrier. Because this isn't over. The barrier is weakening. Eventually it will fail completely. When that happens, we need to be ready. The council leadership exchanged glances. Finally, they agreed. In the weeks that followed, human scientists worked alongside alien researchers studying the ancient records. What they found was terrifying. The organic ships were called the Plague by the ancient civilizations. They had consumed entire sectors of the galaxy before being contained. According to these records, the Plague isn't just alive, Yunji explained to Minji. It's intelligent. Not in the way we understand intelligence, but it learns, adapts, and coordinates. The ancient civilizations only stopped it by luring most of the Plague mass into one sector and sealing it off with the barrier. How long until the barrier fails completely? Minji asked. Hard to say. Could be years. Could be decades. But it's inevitable. Then we need to be ready, Minji said. Not just humanity. The entire galaxy, a new initiative was launched. The Combined Defense Force, or CDF, would include ships and personnel. The alert came at 3 a.m, Earth Standard Time. Minji was already awake, staring at intelligence reports when every screen in her office turned red. The barrier had failed. She didn't panic. She had been preparing for this moment for 8 months. Every species in the galaxy had been preparing. Now it was time to see if their preparations were enough. All forces to battle stations, she ordered into the communication system. This is not a drill. The Plague is coming. Across the galaxy, millions of beings moved into action. The Combined Defense Force had grown into the largest military force in recorded history. 3,000 ships, countless fighters, defense platforms, and armies on the ground ready for whatever came through that barrier. Hyun was at the forward command station, positioned near where the barrier had stood. He watched the sensors as organic ships poured through the gap. Dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. They moved with purpose, spreading out in all directions like a disease seeking new hosts. Get me a count, he ordered. Estimate 10,000 ships and counting, reported a Cathari sensor operator. They're spreading across a front 3 light-years wide. 10,000. It was more than they had hoped, less than they had feared. But each one of those ships was a threat that could spawn new growth if it reached an inhabited world. Begin the first phase, Hyun said calmly. Send in the drones. Humanity's contribution to the defense strategy had been numerous, but the drone swarms were perhaps the most important. Thousands of small, automated craft that could overwhelm enemy forces through sheer numbers. They weren't powerful individually, but they didn't need to be. They were bait. The drones shot forward, engaging the Plague ships at the edge of their formation. The organic vessels responded exactly as predicted, pursuing the small craft and ignoring the larger warships waiting behind them. They're taking the bait, confirmed Jihoon, who commanded one of the forward squadrons. Plague ships are following the drones into the kill zone. All ships hold position until they're in range, ordered Suho, now the overall tactical commander for the human fleet. Remember, we hit them with radiation weapons first. Standard weapons are useless until we weaken them. The Plague ships entered the kill zone, a region of space surrounded by hidden platforms equipped with the radiation weapons humans had developed. On Suho's command, the platforms activated. The effect was immediate. The organic ships began to slow, their surfaces losing the healthy shimmer they had shown before. They were dying, but not fast enough. Second wave, move in, Suho commanded. Target the weakened vessels. CDF ships from dozens of species converged on the dying Plague vessels, finishing them with conventional weapons. The first engagement was a success. 200 plague ships destroyed for minimal losses. But there were still thousands more coming. Borum led her squadron in a fighting retreat, drawing plague ships away from populated systems and toward prepared defensive positions. It was exhausting work. The organic vessels were fast and relentless, never stopping, never needing rest. "How much longer do we keep this up?" asked Sangwoo, who had been at his station for 16 hours straight. "As long as it takes," Borum replied. She looked at her tactical display. The plague was spreading across the galaxy like spilled ink. Every time they stopped one group, 3 more appeared somewhere else. The battle was 3 days old when the first inhabited system came under direct attack. Valar 7, a Vrelnian colony world with 2 million inhabitants. The evacuation had been completed weeks ago, but losing the planet still hurt. Borum's squadron was the closest force. They arrived to find 50 plague ships already in orbit, beginning their descent to the surface. "We can't let them land," Borum said. "If they establish a foothold, we'll never get them out." Her squadron was badly outnumbered, but they had one advantage. They understood sacrifice in a way many species didn't. All ships focus fire on the landing craft. Ignore the others. "Captain, if we do that, we'll be exposed to attack from behind," Sangwoo warned. "I know, do it anyway." The human ships dove into the plague formation, weapons blazing. They destroyed 3 landing craft before the plague responded. Then it became a desperate battle. Borum's ship took hit after hit, shields failing, hull breaching, but they kept fighting. Reinforcements arrived just as Borum's ship lost power. A Kadari battle group led by Velcris, the station commander whose life humans had saved months ago. Together they drove off the plague and saved Valar 7. "You humans never do anything halfway," Velcris said as his crew helped rescue Borum's personnel from their damaged ship. "Where would be the fun in that?" Borum replied with a tired smile. But victories like this were becoming rare. The plague was learning, adapting its tactics. It stopped pursuing drones and started targeting command ships. It began coordinating attacks across multiple systems simultaneously, forcing the CDF to spread thin. Yunji worked around the clock, studying every engagement, looking for patterns and weaknesses. She realized something terrible. The plague wasn't just attacking randomly. It was testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. "It's intelligent," she reported to Minji. "More intelligent than we thought. It's treating this like a chess game, sacrificing pieces to learn our strategies. Then we need to be unpredictable," Minji said. "We need to do things it doesn't expect." The problem was that the plague had been fighting wars since before current galactic civilization existed. It had seen every strategy, every tactic. There was very little it didn't expect. Except for one thing. Dongyun, the elderly scientist who had developed the radiation treatment, called an emergency meeting. He looked exhausted but excited. "I think I've found the answer. But no one is going to like it." He explained his discovery. The plague ships were individual organisms, but they were all connected through some kind of biological network. Quantum entanglement on a cellular level, allowing instant communication across vast distances. That was how they coordinated so effectively. "If we can disrupt that network," Donghyun said, "we can blind them. Make them dumb and uncoordinated." "How do we disrupt it?" Hyun asked. "We need to get close to the source, the central mass beyond the old barrier. That's where the network originates. We introduce a biological agent, something that will spread through their network and disrupt their communication." "A virus," Minji said slowly. "You want to give the plague a virus?" "Exactly. But someone has to deliver it. And that means going into the heart of plague territory, to wherever the main mass is located." The room went silent. Everyone understood what he was describing. A suicide mission. Ships would have to travel beyond the barrier, into a region filled with millions of plague organisms, find the central mass, and deliver the virus before being destroyed. "I'll go," Jihoon said immediately. "So will I," added Borum. "And my squadron," said Velcris, who was attending the meeting remotely. Within hours, hundreds of volunteers had stepped forward. Humans, Vrelnians, Cathari, and representatives from dozens of other species. They all understood the odds. Most of them wouldn't come back. But if they succeeded, they would save the galaxy. The mission fleet assembled in secret, away from the main battle lines. 50 ships, the best and fastest from every species. They carried the virus that Dongyun had developed. a biological weapon designed specifically to target the plague's communication network. Yuna insisted on coming despite Hyun's protests. "Someone needs to document this," she said. "Whatever happens, the galaxy needs to know what we tried to do." The fleet departed at dawn, Earth Standard Time. They traveled toward the gap in the barrier, toward the darkness that had spawned the plague. Behind them, the CDF continued to fight, holding the line, buying time for this desperate gambit. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of traveling through space filled with the wreckage of ancient battles, past dead worlds consumed long ago. They saw the scale of what the plague had done to this region. Entire star systems stripped of all life, turned into breeding grounds for more organic ships. "There," Yunji said, pointing at her sensors. "That's it. The central mass." It wasn't a planet or a ship. It was something else entirely. A structure the size of a small star, pulsing with organic life. Tendrils extended from it in all directions, some stretching for light years. This was the heart of the plague, the source from which all others spawned. And it was surrounded by a defensive swarm of organic ships so dense they blocked out the stars. "Well," Jihoon said quietly, "we knew it wouldn't be easy." The attack began. The mission fleet punched through the outer defenses, using every trick humanity and their allies had developed. Ships fought in pairs and trios, covering each other, sacrificing themselves to keep others moving forward. Borum's ship took critical damage in the first 5 minutes. She stayed at her post, directing her crew to fire until the very last second. Her ship exploded, taking a dozen plague vessels with it. Felkris pushed deeper, his Kthari battlecruiser absorbing punishment that would have destroyed lesser vessels. He made it within weapon range of the central mass before his ship's power core breached. With his last act, he launched every missile he had. Ship after ship fell, but they kept advancing. The plague threw everything at them, waves of defenders that seemed endless. But desperation drove the attackers forward.